Frenchie.
How long till we got the virus sorted?
Weeks at least.
Then we should go to Fort Harmony now.
If there's any V1 left in there, it ain't gonna be easy to find. The shit show is on. Let's fucking go.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. The boys released a brand new Season 5, Episode 4 trailer, so we will break it all down. There are a whole bunch of Easter eggs, WTF moments here, and obviously the body count is slowly beginning to rise through the rest of the season. We are barely halfway through the season, and it kind of feels like Homelander's milk memes have peaked, so we will see how they pace out the back half in terms of unhinged Homelander versus complete warpath, just eviscerate everybody Homelander. The episode title is Though the Heavens Fall, which is a reference to the title of issue 58 of the comics, but the phrase also appears inside the show, engraved below the 7 sculpture at Vought Tower through the seasons, reading Fiat Justia Ruat Caelum, which roughly translates to Let justice be done, though the heavens fall. But recently you may have spotted, in Season 5, Homelander had changed the sculpture, and instead of the 7, it just depicts his likeness now to show you where his headspace is. He thinks everybody else, including the 7, are beneath him. Now he believes himself to be destined for godhood. He literally thinks he should replace Jesus in God. But it was his own mind that he was talking to in that moment that just manifested in the form of Stillwell's milk bonanza. It kind of seems like that's all he's doing now on the show, just walking around with a glass of milk in his hand. That look on Sage's face when she saw the milk, she knew exactly what kind of milk he was drinking. That was not normal milk. Only the finest breast milks for Homelander. But that whole crazy Stillwell moment was just like when he was speaking to his other personas in the mirror. It was all coming from his mind the whole time, and he'd just been spiraling out, and that's what his mind did to try and save himself. The actual trailer makes it seem like most of the episode is going to be Fort Harmony, with all them converging looking for the V1 there. But at the beginning of the trailer footage, we actually start with Butcher and the rest of the boys inside their lair, with him asking Frenchie if he thinks that he can actually recreate the virus himself, because Frenchie does have some skills. He says it's going to be a couple of weeks, but I think that takes them beyond the end of the show. They just want there to be a sliver of hope, like maybe we'll be able to use the virus at some point, but that's only going to be if Homelander doesn't get the V1, and I think they want to hype up the idea that he will eventually get that V1 and they won't be able to use the virus on him.
You thought I'll never make more, so back off.
Like, the show wants to get to a point where there is no hope left in Episode 7. Like, how does anybody defeat Homelander if he has the V1 now? Like, what do we do? How do you solve this problem? Then they use the actual finale to show you how they do solve that problem. Huey with the map leads them to Fort Harmony, with the rest of them looking out, and you notice this whole field is just a bunch of dead animals, and presumably that's just fallout left over from the stuff that's inside Fort Harmony. Like all the testing they did there's latent stuff that's just leaching out into the ecosphere around here, and the animals are dying as a result because all the plants around here are infected. There were actually references to this in the previous episode where people said that things all around Fort Harmony were dying, things that got close to it, but it was also part of the idea that V1 was incredibly unstable and killed most of the people that tried to take it. I think this means that some of the V1 is leaking out around the building here, and that's how it's getting into animal systems and killing them. There are a couple of jokes about this in previous seasons where Russians, other people, would juice up animals with Compound V, turning them into absolute nightmares even though they were a little tiny. The show would use it mostly for comedy, like really messed up comedy. We get a couple scenes of them moving through Fort Harmony, just looking through all of the different testing facilities, trying to actually find more Compound V, the V1. When they're inside the facility, you see Butcher start strangling Huey with his Compound V tumor. It's not clear why. Usually it's because Huey doesn't want Butcher to go off the rails and do something that's really, really crazy. Butcher probably comes up with some very fatalist idea that Huey just thinks is absolutely terrible. So you can let me know what you think their disagreement is over in the actual moment here. Like, why is he threatening to kill Huey? Mostly it seems like what they've done in this final season is try to make Butcher as irredeemable as possible, heading to the actual finale where you definitely feel like he is supposed to die, and his whole thing is not dying until Homelander dies. So I think they want to hype up the idea that the two of them will find a way to cancel each other out, like they'll kill each other, or there'll be some other solution that will both lead to their deaths, mutual deaths. Whatever that winds up turning into, the showrunner already said that he's not doing the original Boys comic book ending, like the whole twist with Black Noir. They already explained in a previous season that they weren't doing that. Black Noir is like a completely different type of character on the show than he is in the comics. Then it kind of seems like all the boys start fighting with each other, like Mother's Milk pulls a gun on Huey, who tries to knock it out of his hand. So it seems like a free-for-all situation here, where what they're trying to do divides the team. Like whatever Butcher's plan is, it divides the team, which they kind of addressed in last week's episode too, where like half of the boys were on Butcher's side and wanted the hardcore plan, and Huey was trying to advocate for something that sounded more reasonable that didn't potentially lead to the deaths of the entire human race and all superheroes combined.
We're not just gonna go along with this, right?
But at least with Butcher, he's fine with any amount of collateral damage, so like he doesn't care who dies as long as Homelander dies, even if it means a giant chunk of the human race. We get another very messed up scene with Ashley licking O-Father here. They're married, but there were also implications that O-Father had been arrested, or he was going to be arrested for child abuse, some sort of weird thing going on in the background with their whole faith. Mostly a reference to the way that real-world religions will try to cover up the crimes of their priesthood. You also have to remember that Ashley has her weird Compound V second head on the back of her head here, so it's probably talking to her while this is happening too, so it's kind of like they're having this weird messed up threesome. We get another scene of O-Father using his ability on everyone else, seemingly affected Homelander in a previous episode too, and caused him to start freaking out too, which then led to his eventual Stillwell hallucination. They haven't really explained exactly how O-Father's ability works. Maybe they'll do that later this season. I think it might have something to do with affecting people's minds, some sort of influence type of ability, like opening people's minds. But also, there's like a sonic wave that comes with like actual sonic force that comes out that he can use to blast people with. Then at some point, Butcher sees Homelander and Soldier Boy also coming to Fort Harmony while the boys are still in there, having the same idea that they did, looking for more V1 inside the facility. Making you wonder, because we are halfway through the season, if they will use this episode to kill off one of the people on the boys' team. My early assumption when it comes to death predictions like that is that most people, like most main characters, had a lot of plot armor on them, at least till episode 7, but supposedly the back half of the season, they will pull the gloves off and they will start dropping more actual big character bodies. Most of the deaths in the first couple of episodes were lesser characters with the exception of A-Train, like he was the big death at the beginning of the season. But he was still a relatively supporting character, like not one of the actual big main characters. I know there are a lot of people now wondering what happened with Ryan after Homelander just absolutely wailed on him and seemed like he was trying to kill him. There are a lot of questions about that too. Did Homelander think that he killed him when he left? My assumption is that Homelander's senses are so powerful, he was able to sense Butcher's Compound V tumor, like he was impressed by it in that previous episode, so he could probably sense that Ryan's heart was still beating, so he probably didn't think that he killed Ryan when he left, like, oh, he'll be fine, my boy will be fine, I'm gonna go off and go do something else now. And even though it seemed like he was trying to kill Ryan, I think that he was really trying to discipline, like corporal punishment type of discipline, but Homelander's style of corporal punishment. And because Ryan did have superpowers, he knew that he could lay into him a little bit more, and that's what he was doing. Basically, beating his child the way that there's a lot of real-world childhood abuse. This is also meant to be him passing on a lot of the verbal abuse that he was experiencing from Soldier Boy himself. So the idea is this whole generational trauma with their family. And now, unless Ryan is able to break the cycle, theoretically, if you want to be pessimistic about it, Ryan will grow up and eventually abuse his son too at some point.
Look at you. Just the softest, wettest boy.
I don't want to be that pessimistic. I do think that Ryan will wind up surviving this series. Like, I think if the series wanted to kill Ryan off, they would have had him actually perma-die after Homelander beat him there. But the other really big thing with Ryan is that early on, like when they first introduced the character and the idea that he was Homelander's biological child with biological-based powers, They kind of made it seem like he was going to be a much bigger deal on the show than he wound up being. So originally, I thought that they might use Ryan to try and end Homelander's threat in the finale, like it would be a Superboy versus Superman kind of fight. But the fight between the two of them when he was abusing him should let you know how much more powerful Homelander is than Ryan. Ryan does not stand a chance against him one-on-one. So I kind of think that Ryan turned into a Gen V character situation. Like there are a couple big Gen V crossover characters that they set up at the end of Gen V Season 2 and earlier in these episodes when they mentioned, oh, where's Marie? Oh, she's off doing this other thing. Where you wind up with a show that gets so big that there's so many side characters and side plots that they don't quite know what to do with down the road, and they want to refocus in the final season on the core characters like the main boys characters, Butcher, those guys, and Homelander, and some of the main 7 characters. And they only have enough time to service their storylines in a satisfying way, wrap up their storylines in a satisfying way. So they don't want to get too sidetracked with the Gen V characters or even with Ryan's character. And that's why Ryan won't be as critical as I thought he was going to be before to the way they deal with Homelander in the final ending in the episode. And even though we make a lot of jokes about how the show changes the comics in really significant ways, like it's very different from the comics is now, them kind of pushing Ryan as a character off to the side, like kind of putting him on the sidelines for the rest of the season, is relatively closer to the comics because Ryan isn't really a character in the actual comics. So I kind of think that's what's happening with the Ryan subplot. Like, they gave him his moment, and they're going to push him off into the background for most of the rest of the season. Also, for those of you asking if they would ever do a sequel series, because there are a whole lot of prequels that they're working on right now, like Jensen Ackles' Soldier Boy prequel is going to release early next year at some point. There is a Boys sequel comic book that details what happens with Huey long after the events of the main Boys storyline, but I don't think the show is actually going to go there. I think if they do more spin-offs, there'll be more prequels and more with side plots, like they're doing a Boys Mexico series. We'll probably hear more about that next year.
Phases 7 through 19.
They still have the Gen V TV show. It hasn't been renewed for season 3 yet, but like right now, their main focus after the Boys main series is going to be the Soldier Boy Vought Rising TV show with Stormfront. The Boys also made all the jokes calling out Marvel for like Phase 10, Phase 11, like all the billion different spin-offs and TV shows and movies, but The Boys is now slowly turning into that meme. They are also slowly becoming the meme with all their spin-offs and prequels. Everybody post all your reactions in the comments below and start posting your death predictions. I do think that there's a lot of plot armor on some of the bigger characters until at least episode 7, but it does feel like that will be the tipping point and a lot of them will die before episode 8. My full episode 4 video will post this Wednesday after they release it, so be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss that. We also have the Invincible finale and more Daredevil Born Again, so I'll post those episodes as soon as possible, just like last week. Everybody click here for that new Boys episode, and click here for all my other Boys episodes. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.